Hi, I'm Byron Carson. This is my wife, Angie. We live down in Huxley and have been members of Cornerstone since it started, very first day. My wife is particularly interested in hospitality and in opening our home. We didn't exactly know what that meant at the time, but we kind of agreed that we would be interested at some point in our marriage helping out people in need in that way and opening our home or sharing our home. Starting in March of 2012, we had the opportunity to host a single mom who wanted to move to Iowa with 2 young kids. That was an opportunity for us to really say yes in a situation where we were asked if we could help out. So we invited her and her 2 kids to live with us for a while.
My name is Gabe, and this is Ellen, and we are the Reyeses.
In March of 2012, a young mom and her 2 little kids came to live with my family. Liana was 2 and Aiden was just a baby. They quickly became like family to us, and they were really easy to love. A couple years later, Gabe and I met, and the kids became part of his life, an important part of his life, and they just bonded really quickly.
Adoption was never something that was on my radar in particular. I didn't necessarily oppose it, but after talking with Ellen, and that was something that God really put on my heart, was just to be a place or a safe place for kids that didn't have a place to go to come live.
Yeah, so our kids were mostly teenagers. Our youngest was 12, and it kind of shook things up quite a bit to add babies to our house. But they lived with us for 8 weeks, and then we helped them move into an apartment nearby. So Byron always believed that we should treat her as one of our daughters. And that's what we tried to do, and we just tried to keep moving in the right direction and doing what we could to help her that way. I called myself her Iowa mom, and I think that she knew that we were always trying to cheer her on. We used a lot of resources to help her, but we never felt bad about that because we were just growing to love them so much, and it was just a natural outflow to do whatever we could for them. When we took care of our kids, it was a fun time in our home and brought us a lot of joy. We did things like helped them play baseball and go to theater class, and we hosted their birthday parties, and we sewed Halloween costumes.
In December of 2016, Gabe and I got married, and Liana and Aiden were actually in our wedding and stood up with the bridesmaids and the groomsmen during the whole ceremony. But a couple weeks after our wedding, a 3rd child, Micah, was born. And we got to hold him in the hospital the day he was born, and the older kids stayed with us during their hospital stay. For the first several years of our marriage, we just tried to be as involved as possible with the 3 kids. And they typically stayed with us every other weekend while their mom was working.
So on the weekends that we would have the kids on a regular basis, we would go to the farmer's market. I would take the boys and go fishing. I was actually there for the first 2 fish that they caught. Their first fish, both of them.
Yeah, during those years, we made just so many memories with them and really got to form deep relationships with them. And we also cleaned up a lot of messes and woke up with sick kids in the night. And I think in that season, God just continually gave me a deep confidence that this was an investment we should be making and that we were never going to regret any of it. In December of 2019, a 4th child came along. Her name was Ayla, and when Ayla was about 10 months old, the kids were no longer able to live with their bio mom anymore. And in the beginning, we didn't have a good plan in place. We just didn't know how long it was gonna go on for. So we shuffled kids around between us and my parents. But after a lot of prayer and conversations, we settled into that the older 2 kids would live with my parents and the younger 2 kids would live with us in Ames.
Things grew more unstable with their family, and it was harder to keep things together. And after a while, she was unable to take care of her kids anymore, and they came to live with us.
At this point, we had been empty nesters for 18 months, is that right? And we really felt, I think to be honest, entitled to our empty nesting.
We were the obvious people for them to live with because they had known us their whole lives. We co-parented with Ellen and Gabe, and it was pretty chaotic. In spite of the chaos, there was lots of laughter and singing and lots of wrestling and playing, and the kids felt safe and secure, and that's what really mattered the most to us.
Like Ellen said at the beginning, I had a very close bond with both of the older kids, and so the decision to actually have them go live with my in-laws and actually take the 2 younger kids to live with us was a difficult decision for me, but ultimately it made the most sense for both of our life stages.
We were really thankful that at the time they came to live with us, they already had formed relationships, not only with us and my siblings, but also with Gabe's family and even my extended family. So it wasn't new people to them, and all of our family really embraced them and just put their arms around us, which we were so thankful for. God really put adoption in our minds and even in our plan, but we just had no idea that these kids who we had already bonded so deeply with were the children who would one day become part of our official family.
Sometimes it's been really difficult to believe that God's plan was really being accomplished, but at the same time, I never felt like I was walking through it alone. And part of that was having the body of believers with Cornerstone being part of our lives. We received so much support from people of this church. I've prayed for some time that God would take the brokenness of this story and make it into something beautiful that's honoring to Him. And when I stop and catch my breath and look back, I realize that it's already happening.
Our adoptions were actually finalized in a combined court hearing on December 12th of 2022. And my parents adopted Liana and Aiden, and we adopted Micah and Ayla.
Yeah, it's funny looking back at our story. We didn't live or treat the kids like there was any sort of plans of adopting them. We just loved them, loved being around them. But it's cool now to look back and see God's fingerprints throughout the whole thing. I think it's really easy for people to look at our story and just see a lot of joy. And while there's a lot of joy in our household and with the kids, I think it's really easy to kind of look over the profound brokenness and just the amount of grieving that has happened.
Last year during the Easter service, I got to baptize Liana, and it was such a high moment for me in a season that felt really low. I had just been struggling so much with our uncertainties with our situation at the time, and Liana deciding to get baptized was just such a tangible reminder to me of God's faithfulness and goodness in a season that didn't feel very clear to me.
We set out to live out our faith, going back a lot of years now in helping out this family. We had ideas about what that should look like. We really wanted to have supported them, the biological mother and the children, and help them become a sufficient and functioning family. That's not how it turned out. We still pray for the biological mom. Living out our faith still means that we care about her, and we don't know how that's going to end.
Even though the 4 kids aren't living together under the same roof, they're very much still siblings in every sense of the word, and they spend lots of time together. And really, they're just part of one big family with aunts and uncles who love them.
Our story of faithfulness is not that God took these kids and gave them to us as some sort of reward. Our story is that God has walked with us on this journey for over 10 years, preparing our hearts to be able to respond to this broken situation with full trust and faith. And we can look at all of those moments and just praise the work that He's done.